The east coast of the United States of America stretches almost 2,500 kilometers from Florida, through the southern states, past New York and Boston, to the Canadian border. The southern states. Slavery and civil war shaped their turbulent past. But nowadays, life here moves at a relaxed pace. The journey proceeds from Georgia through the Carolinas to Virginia. It ends near Washington, D.C. In Allenhurst, deep in the south of Georgia, where the summer days are hot and muggy, lies Hosley Hall's farm. Everything here is a bit different than on other nearby farms. The biggest difference are the old-fashioned vehicles.
My father was a farmer, but I was too small to do any work. But I was able to comprehend everything just at a small age.
Hosley Hall is a farmer who likes to handle everything himself in the fields. And he'd find it quite boring if everything were always the same here. He loves the variety of traditional southern crops.
This first row here is a speckled butter bean. These 3 rows here is a red ripper pea. The 4 here are Spanish peanut, and one is a large green boiling peanut, but real tasty for eating. And to the left of that, 8 other rows are sweet potatoes. Red Ruby, Georgia red sweet potatoes.
Hosley Hall, a proud Georgia farmer. He spent a few years away as an army musician, but that wasn't what he really wanted to do in the long run. He prefers to live his days on a southern farm, despite a few minor annoyances.
The bugs eat you up. It's dusty, my allergies are bad, and I take shots, but for some reason I don't know, I think it's just the old dirt and the mud. Just walking through the mud, through the cane field.
And then there's his hobby, cars. Vintage cars, of course. His Chevy is almost 60 years old now. And given how well he takes care of it, it may reach 100.
I bought it from some friends about maybe about 2 or 3 miles in the same area. It was basically in a semi-junkyard, and I restored it back to 100% original. I was dumbfounded. I did the wrong thing. It was too caustic, but I just wanted a piece of history.
What makes Hosley's car stand out most is its color, reminiscent of a classic American line of tractors.
I like green, John Deere green, as you can see, and I just had a visual of a John Deere green truck, and to me it's a lot of beauty. As well, other people really like it.
But until well into the 19th century, Hosley could not have enjoyed this plot of land in Georgia. White-skinned people owned the fields down here. Black-skinned people labored for them all day. Slavery was only officially abolished after the US Civil War. Hosley truly enjoys spending time on his farm. In addition to planting crops here, he also raises cows.
Come on. It goes back into history, you know, that the African American was brought over here as slave. They weren't originally from here, but they was brought over here, abused, and they was promised things. And with the cost and everything, for some reason, the African Americans, really don't, care too much about the outsides or the farm. But that's very few.
And Hosley also continues to pursue his side jobs. He's a successful singer, composer, and music teacher too.
Early in the morning, when it old rooster crow, of that sweet morning sound, that black stallion dance, and that early morning dew. Sour boy, we're on our way. I don't want to ride too fast. I don't want to ride too slow. I want to ride away.
Georgia, famous for its stately old Southern-style houses. Many were built before the Civil War and attest to the wealth of the plantation owners who built them. Next, a visit to Georgia's Golden Isles. The magnificent grounds of the Jekyll Island Club Hotel, now a luxury resort. St. Simon's Island is another popular place to vacation. Many buy homes to live here, seasonally or all year round. And others choose to remain even longer on the island, or rather, off the coast of the island. A few times per month, Cap Fendig heads out onto the Atlantic with urns full of ashes and with the relatives of the deceased. He's not just the captain of the boat. He's usually the minister for the service as well. Today's funeral is for an islander named Lena.
Welcome aboard, and thank you for the honor of being a part of your special family moment here. Well, we're going to travel about 3 miles out and find a suitable spot where we'll conduct the service, and then after that we'll make our way on back in.
They've got to move quickly. A storm is brewing in the distance. At 30 degrees with extreme humidity, it can get quite uncomfortable around here. Cap Fendig has a fishing trip planned for this evening, but it looks like the unusually named captain will have to cancel it.
My name is Cap, C-A-P, and the name came from my grandfather. I was the first of the next generation born, and they told me that my grandfather walked in and said, "He will be Cap." That's it. And so it was.
And his boat is named the Puddle Shuttle, even though it sails out on the open sea. In stormy weather, these waters can only be navigated by big ships, like those that transport cars to and from Europe. 3 miles from the coast, Lena's ashes will be scattered into the Atlantic.
Okay, we have arrived at that special place. And our normal procedure is that we will share some words or last memories or thoughts. And then we'll spread a few flowers, and then we'll spread the ashes and then make a circle wreath with the flowers.
Lena was much more than a sister to me. She helped raise me. It's about all I can think of to say for my sister.
have a seat here. Then you would undo the band on the ashes.
And so Lena's earthly remains are forever intermingled with the ocean she loved so much. Rest in peace, Lena.
Most people that come to the water, I think, have a relaxed mind about the event and look at it as more of a celebration and a joy. I can't even recall that I've had black worn except by me. I do always wear a black shirt in honor of the moment, but nobody else does.
As an astute businessman, Cap also offers wedding tours and sunset trips. But he's best known for his funerals at sea. Captain Cap's command centre sits in the middle of St. Simon's Island. He doesn't believe in rushing things, but he also doesn't believe in missing out. He once even seriously tried to become President of the United States.
Of course, everybody thought I was crazy. It didn't go that well, but, you know, I come from being a fisherman, and you'll never catch a fish if your hook is in the boat. But if you put a hook out with bait on the line, then maybe something will happen. And I think Americans are looking for a new face in Washington, somebody that's not embedded in the political obligations, that is free to make decisions what will really be best for the American people and not be tied up in party politics.
And on goes the journey. The route next leads up the Georgia coast towards South Carolina and its port city, Charleston. Passing Sapelo Island and its lighthouse. And Savannah, the setting for numerous Hollywood films. This is where Forrest Gump sat on his park bench. And just nearby, at Hilton Head Island's Yacht Club, Lara Neese's new boat is almost seaworthy. Lara lives on the boat whenever possible, though it's currently being restored. Lara and her partner Brian are taking their time with it. Life in the South always moves at an easy, relaxed pace.
I enjoy working on the boat. Of course, this is a huge project, but it's very rewarding when you get to the end and you've done the work yourself, and you can look at it and you can be proud of what you've done and how far you've traveled on it. So it's a little bit about working with your hands, but it would be very expensive to pay someone to do all of the work that we need to do. So we pay people to help us sometimes on little things, but usually we are in charge of the projects and we do most of the work.
The couple are kind of like modern hippies with big plans.
Well, we're planning on leaving here, and we want to travel down to the Bahamas again and then carry on into the Caribbean. We want to make it down to the U.S. Virgin Islands and possibly stay there for a little while. But the long-term goal is to sail to New Zealand eventually. So we will take our time getting there, but that is the long-term goal.
Lara's artwork helps pay for their project. Painting can be done anywhere, anytime, even while at sea. And potential customers can be found in every port. That's the idea, in any case. Lara is a coastal girl and would never be happy inland, nor would she know what to paint.
It's connected to anything that's natural. So the ocean, the creatures that live in it, the plants and animals. Mostly I focus on the southeast because that's where I live. But when we travel, I try to take photographs and take my sketchbook around and draw things that I see.
Sanding, varnishing. Sanding, varnishing. That's what occupies most of Lara's time.
The weather is very important, especially because it's so humid in this area. We have to wait for days that have low humidity, and the temperature can't be too high because it will affect the curing time of the paint, and it will affect how well the paint looks and how well it cures and stands over time. So we have to wait for certain days to paint.
For as long as the sailboat remains on dry land, Lara is content to glide around by kayak. This won't get her and Brian to New Zealand, but it's perfect for exploring nearby. The East Coast is full of adventure, as long as the weather cooperates. Otherwise, it can also be full of danger.
Well, we were in a bad electrical storm off the coast of the Cape Fear, and the lightning got very bad, and a front came in from 3 different sides, so it's called the Cape Fear for a reason. So it was very scary because the lightning was so close that it caused us to be blind for a few minutes whenever it struck.
The coastline of the southern states is mostly quite flat, and those who don't know their way around can easily get lost in its vast swamps. It's 100 kilometers as the crow flies to Charleston, famous for the decommissioned aircraft carrier in its harbor, its historic mansions, and its old-fashioned southern charm. Charleston was also the setting for a very unfortunate event in American history. The Civil War began when shots were fired at Fort Sumter, just off the coast here. Most fishermen, though, associate the area with something entirely different. This is one of the best fishing grounds on the East Coast. And making sure it stays that way is the goal of the Marine Resources Research Institute. Erin Levesky works here.
Monitoring programs just seek to see just what's there. So we would like to see as many fish as we can and to tag fish. So hopefully when we go back out over and over again, we can recapture some of these fish like we did today. And then we can learn a lot about fish movement and fish growth too. If we recapture the same fish over and over again, we have that individual ID, so we know that this is fish number such and such, and we can measure that fish and see how it grows over time.
She's a marine biologist who's happiest working on the research vessel in the waters near Charleston. She's on her way to catch and tag sharks just off the coast here.
Use mullet most of the time for bait, and it's a fish that stays on the hooks really well, so we're actually catching the mullet at different times when we sample, and we'll freeze them. We have lots of bait when we go out.
The captain and his crew always head to the same spots, near the large ships. The first line is being prepared. One main cord onto which they attach many smaller ones with bait. Always with extreme care. It only takes a moment's distraction to get a fish hook caught in one's flesh.
Well, sharks make very large movements. They make very large migrations. So some species that we find, black nose, for instance, those sharks will move maybe all the way down to Florida, and then they'll move back up here. The same thing with fine-toothed sharks. So depending on the season, in the wintertime, they're going to move to Florida. They'll move to warmer waters where they can find food sources.
The line is hauled in within just a few minutes so as not to torment the fish. The longer the hook stays in the mouth, the greater the risk of it becoming embedded too deeply to be removed. One is sure to bite. The place is simply teeming with sharks. Although the procedure may appear rough, nearly all the fish make it through unscathed. And it ultimately helps ensure that the population is preserved. Every shark is measured and a blood sample is taken for a subsequent health check in the lab. And they record which particular species each one belongs to.
The shark tags we use are actually the tags that are used on cattle. No sheep or cows. They're just plastic tags that we can clip through their fins. And they're very heavy plastic, so they last a long time.
Some area fishermen are not fans of the research centre. When the scientists classify certain species as threatened, fishing bans get imposed. In order to precisely monitor the fish population, knowledge of the animal's average age is also important.
The other thing that we got that's very valuable are their otoliths, and their otoliths are kind of like ear bones is the best way I can describe them. And once you take a little section, a very small thin section of that otolith, you can determine the age of the fish.
Erin exchanges research findings with colleagues in neighbouring states. This allows for better monitoring of species that migrate. Measuring, evaluating, and thus ensuring that the fish population stays healthy. For Erin, it's a dream job.
I was always investigating and very curious. So I just kind of grew up with that natural love and knew that that's where I wanted to be. And that was my real passion.
The region's dolphins also appreciate having a healthy fish stock along the coast. North from Charleston, the journey continues through Myrtle Beach's 100-kilometre-long stretch of sand to North Carolina's Outer Banks. The East Coast is no stranger to mass tourism. Myrtle Beach is a perfect destination for anyone who prefers vacationing on busy and bustling beaches. Every bit of land is put to use. But when a hurricane comes, Mother Nature always tries to reclaim some of what was taken from her. Those looking for solitude will find it mostly on private islands. Chris Wilson is painting here on Figure 8 Islands Beach. quite close to the small city of Wilmington, known for its magnificent historic mansions. Chris Wilson paints what's around him, sometimes untouched nature, sometimes the urban highlights of his hometown, Wilmington.
I'm looking for extraordinary landscapes, things that are extraordinary in terms of visual interest and that will make a really good painting. And so I'm not really seeking out the best-known tourist sites in North Carolina and then trying to do those because it's not the site that I'm after, it's the composition and the design that I'm after. So that's what interests me. Sometimes I might move a tree or move a cloud because it makes a better composition. But things which are not transitory are things that always have to stay where they are in relation to themselves.
Chris Wilson is a 19th century kind of man and loves the architecture, particularly the neoclassical antebellum style. His mansion was built in 1854 by a German immigrant and has 21 rooms. Each item in the house has been carefully selected. The basement is where he paints.
I am primarily a studio painter, and it simply is impossible to take a 16-foot canvas outside in the wind and think that it's not going to take off like a sail. And so it really is essential to be a successful studio painter with a successful working method in order to achieve the ambition that I have for my paintings and for the way that the viewers will respond to them.
Chris has taken on a mighty big project. 100 paintings of scenes from along Highway 64, which crosses North Carolina. This will keep him busy for a very long time. Down here, he can work in a disciplined manner, unaffected by the weather or external light conditions, and free from interruptions.
I would say that in my household, my children and my wife understand that the only person who has an opinion about painting is the painter, and that their opinion is not welcomed, good or bad. It's just not up to them to have an opinion, and I'm not interested in hearing it.
Chris Wilson synthesizes everything artfully. His paintings, his house, and his own way of life together characterize the quintessential America that he attempts to portray.
I have never held for myself the desire to be the kind of artist that was either the anti-hero or the bohemian or the revolutionary. So my life is organized around issues about my love of creating art, striving to be a good citizen.
And he also loves long walks on the beach. These two sometimes give him ideas for his paintings.
My connection to the sea and the ocean is actually from childhood onward. Many times during the year, my father's family had houses on the coast. My mother's family lived full-time on the coast. And so the happiest days, really, of my youth were really spent on the coastal islands.
Further up the coast are some nice sandy spots that are uninhabited by humans, perfect for the pelicans that call this area home. All over, the Atlantic leaves behind evidence of its powers. Morehead City is one place that has actually benefited from the destructive forces of nature. It's a top destination for American wreck divers. The diving boat Olympus sets out from here every morning, weather permitting, of course. Nima Triplett is on board. She's an avid diver who organizes tours here.
The most fascinating thing is just being around the marine life, just becoming neutrally buoyant, and then just being at one with the environment.
The divers on this tour are visiting from New York, California, even Canada. Only Nima lives nearby. She's originally from Oklahoma, but has long felt at home right here on the East Coast.
If we've got divers on the hang line,
Every trip begins with a briefing for everyone. After all, it's no playground underwater. Nima offers mentoring for divers that are less experienced.
there's a cooler up on the sun deck with ice in it.
The area is called the Graveyard of the Atlantic, and for good reason. Hundreds of ships have met their demise here and now lie in eternal rest at the bottom of the ocean.
This area, it's got a lot of really amazing shipwrecks that attract marine life through the Gulf Stream. That's just incredible. I've been diving to a lot of places in the world, and I've never seen such a concentration of marine life. And so it's just incredible every time you go diving here.
They spend 2 hours heading out across the Atlantic before reaching their first dive site. Everyone wants to see the submarine that was sunk here. They will descend 35 meters beneath the sea.
Hi, Nima.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Those are good. Here I go.
Air is good. Clear underneath of you.
Apparently.
Enjoy.
15 this time. Yep.
The submarine is actually one of the most popular shipwrecks in the world, the one we have, the U-352. It was sunk in World War II, actually on May 9th, 1942. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Icarus located it and did a depth charge and disabled it. And when that happened, the captain of the submarine surfaced, and so the majority of his crew were able to get out, escape from the submarine. 7 sailors did not, and they're still inside the submarine at depth.
Nima Triplett is the last to surface.
Hey, how was your dive when you hailed us?
my gosh, it was so cool. There were sharks everywhere.
Nice.
No matter how many times she dives, the experience remains just as amazing.
It just feels really peaceful, just because you're in a place that not very many people have a chance to go to. And so it's just, to me, it's just this really peaceful feeling to be underwater and just breathe and just concentrating on breathing and just being neutrally buoyant. And so it's always been this really, really peaceful thing to me.
The day's second stop lies a good hour away. In any case, they need a break to allow their bodies to get rid of the accumulated nitrogen. This time, they will explore the wreck of the tanker Aeolus, which sank in August 1988. Nima encounters menacing underwater creatures each time, such as these large sharks.
There's always an element of danger with scuba diving, but in my head there's an imaginary fence that the mean sharks don't enter around the shipwrecks, in my head. You don't touch the marine life at all. Sometimes it's really, really tempting. We dove with a sand tiger shark that had a hook in it, and it was easy within reach, and I went to help it, but you don't touch the marine life. I love it here. I go kayaking, I go for walks and runs right along the water. And so just living here is just, the salt air is just amazing. And it just, whatever's going on in the world, you're with your day, you're off work and you're taking a walk along the coastline, and it's just amazing and beautiful. It's real simple, I like it a lot.
She's not alone in her love of the Atlantic. Morehead City's harbour is also a gathering place for big game fishermen. The anglers use sophisticated equipment to go after especially large fish, and almost never return empty-handed. On North Carolina's coast, even children know what it means to catch a really big fish. The wild horses of Shackleford Banks are much more fortunate. Their habitat is protected by the National Park system, and visitors must adhere to very strict rules. On the way north through the Outer Banks stands the striped lighthouse of Cape Hatteras. The chain of narrow islands lies far out into the Atlantic, but they are well developed and in some sections quite densely populated. Kitty Hawk is where the Wright brothers achieved the first motorized flight. Nearby are the largest sand dunes on the east coast, a paradise for sandboarders. And for hobby pilots who want to play at Wright brothers. The wind here is almost always good for flying. This is the pier of the town of Duck. Yes, it's really named Duck. And this is the Duckmobile. Official name, Lark. Official purpose, bringing research units out onto the Atlantic. Professor Jesse McNinch and his team may look like regular boaters at first glance, but looks can be deceiving. Duck is home to world-renowned oceanographers, whose Duckmobile is the envy of their colleagues.
It's an amphibious vessel. It allows us to get into the surf zone when the waves are breaking, and it's, you can see it's a pretty treacherous area to work, and we're able to get into the surf zone and consistently put gear in or measure, make observations from that, and then drive out.
The goal of this mission is to collect a measuring device that's broken loose in a storm and is currently drifting at sea. It needs to be repaired before being set back in place. The scientists are mostly focused on coastal protection. They strive to better understand the activity of the ocean. The results of the research of Duck's oceanographers are applicable to most shorelines on the planet. Jesse McNinch wouldn't trade his workplace for any other. What looks like a reinforced golf cart is actually a sand drill. Taking samples and gathering data are among the scientists' most important tasks in Duck.
We measured storms and waves and tides and things like that for 30 years. Now we know, we can see, we have an actual 30-year record of sea level rise. We have a 30-year record of storms. We have a 30-year record of how the shoreline is changing. And so it improves, we're able to look at climate change because we were persistent in measuring that. You can't do that with 1 year of data or 2 years of data or whatever.
The Outer Banks are repeatedly battered by severe weather patterns, and all of the newfound knowledge directly benefits coastal protection efforts. The beach here is part of a closed military research facility. This means Jesse can perform his experiments undisturbed. Using scientific drilling, for example, this helps resolve questions related to coastal safety. How do storms hit the shore, and what sorts of damage can they inflict? How high do tidal waves get, and how can people protect themselves? Grains of sand can answer these questions, and with this self-built vehicle, samples as deep as 1 meter can be extracted from the beach. Shovels and buckets just won't cut it here. The layers of sand need to be maintained exactly as they've been deposited on the seashore.
There's a real story and history in the sand grains, and by taking these cores, digging holes, by driving the sediment up into this barrel, we can open it up and look at the record of the sediment of the sand grains that's preserved down below the beach. And most importantly, what we really want to do is almost treat them like tree rings, because the sediment records the passing storms. And what we just recorded, a meter or so of sediment, might preserve the last, say, 10 or 15 years of storms.
The next storm comes that same evening. Within minutes, the weather changes completely. It's annoying for local vacationers, but not for the oceanographers.
Yeah, that was just a little girl's version. That was just a play version. I get excited during hurricane season and when hurricanes come, in part because of the research that we do. We need storms to make advances, to do the observations. But it is exciting. You see the community really come together during the storms, from helping each other clean the trees out of yards and cleaning furniture or houses that have been flooded.
By the next morning, the storm has passed, and Jesse can calmly head back out onto the water to perform his daily measurements.
It's called a Secchi disc. It's a very, very simple thing. In fact, it's been used for many, many decades, perhaps maybe as much as 100 years now. And we lower it into the water, and it's just a very crude way of measuring how much you can see, the clarity of the water. And in that particular case is a good example of the variety of research that we do here, from hurricane research to, in that case, we're measuring how clear the water is, and then we're looking at different instruments to measure that from space and from above.
And there's one more reason why Jesse loves living and working here so much.
I'm pretty sure I would not be happy as a person without the ocean. I spent a few years in Nebraska, and that was very much like purgatory for me. I was so anxious to get back and to be close to the ocean.
The Outer Banks are a great place to romp around, with so many ways to have fun. sort of like America's largest sandbox. The final stage of the journey leads from Duck to the state of Virginia. Norfolk is home to America's largest naval base. Further north, a stop in sleepy Ononcock for some good music and great food. 2 lighthouses show sailors the way to Norfolk. The city is a bastion of the military, and its presence is apparent everywhere. After crossing Chesapeake Bay by a combination bridge tunnel, one soon arrives at the town of Ononcock. And Johnny Moe's restaurant. Everyone here knows Johnny Moe and his song about the East Coast.
Another day wasted, the days have gone by. I'm staring out my window, the fields, they are so pure. It's such a beautiful place here on the eastern shore, living on the eastern shore. I love the eastern shore. Yeah.
Both started around the same time. About 13 years old, I started getting a real love for a kitchen. My godfather owned a restaurant, and I worked with him, and he kind of taught me the ropes growing up. And at the same time, I was starting to like girls, and I realized that the girls liked it when you played little guitar. So started playing guitar, started singing, and I got better at cooking, I got better at playing guitar, and they both kind of grew into each other at the same time.
Before Johnny came to Ononcock, the town was not exactly known for gourmet food, but it's easy to find good, fresh ingredients nearby. The menu varies a bit day by day, depending on what Johnny is in the mood to cook. And he's usually happiest when he's in his kitchen.
I made a name for myself. I was taking some of the original food that's from this area, such as crab cakes and simple seafood dishes, and adding my own flair, my own style to it. And I think that was a welcome addition to the area, because as people were evolving down here and their palates were evolving as well, they wanted something a little different than just standard food, and I was able to bring that here and was very welcomed with open arms.
When Johnny is at the stove, the rhythms get hot as well.
All right, we're rocking in the kitchen, man. Got a little fire in the kitchen. A little rock and roll. That's what we do. Make a little fire and it's all for you, yeah. Woo! A little fire tonight. But we're having a good time.
There's always music in the kitchen for me. Every time around me when I look up, if I hear the sizzling of something in a pan or the crackling or tapping the knife on the cutting board, there's always music around. So it inspires me to write music and to just have music around me as well.
Ononcock is a bit off the beaten track, and many guests at the restaurant have come here just for Johnny Moe, who never sends anyone home hungry, even when he's about to close for the day. And when does he get the chance to relax? Usually in the mornings. That's when he heads out on Chesapeake Bay in his boat. Alone on the sea with his guitar. A city slicker would say there's absolutely nothing happening here, but that's just what makes Ononcock so uniquely appealing to Virginia's musical chef.
I've been everywhere from Maine down to Florida on the coast, and this is special to me because of the fact that it's pretty much the last underdeveloped part of the whole entire East Coast. If you go up and down the coast, there's not many little charming towns like this, little areas. It's usually overdeveloped or, chains and big business.
Johnny hasn't always lived here on these shores. His parents lived near Washington. But for as long as he can remember, he's been drawn to the coastline.
And then I found this beautiful spot on the coast, and I will never ever leave it. This is a piece of me now, and if when I die, they're going to cremate me and put me in the ocean or put me in the bay here, because that's where I want to be.
A place to stay forever. On the eastern shore, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia share in the Atlantic coastal portion of America's southern states.